Why has humanity stopped landing on the moon for decades? Although humans once set foot on the moon and ignited the dream of space conquest, since the Apollo 17 mission, NASA has not conducted any further missions to land people on the moon. Why is that? Hello, dear listeners of radio. From May 1961 to December 1972, the United States successfully completed 6 manned moon landings, wrapping up the Apollo program. The program lasted around 11 years and cost $25.5 billion USD, including 11 missions using spacecraft from Apollo 7 to Apollo 17. However, since Apollo 17 successfully landed on the moon and returned to Earth in 1972, the U.S. ended its lunar landing plans. Since then, no human has set foot on the moon again. Furthermore, other countries, including the UK, have also halted their moon landing ambitions. The last moon landing belonged to the Apollo project, which began in September 1962 when U.S. President John F. Kennedy announced the plan to send humans to the moon. He stated, "We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things not because they are easy but because they are hard, because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. We are willing to accept the challenge, not postpone it. We will conquer it and we will win." Just as promised, the first man, an American, landed on the moon in 1969 during the Apollo 11 mission. However, Apollo 17, completed in December 1972, was the last time a human set foot on the moon. It became the last officially recorded human presence on the lunar surface. This raises the question, if we still know so little about the moon, why did the US stop landing there? According to the US government, the reason was budget constraints. But this explanation doesn't convince many today. Some believe the real reason may be far more shocking: extraterrestrial life. During the Apollo 11 moon landing in 1969, there were 2 minutes of interrupted radio transmission after landing. This wasn't just a technical glitch. Many believe that information during those 2 minutes was intentionally kept from the public. According to David Childress, an author who writes about unexplained phenomena, the astronauts reportedly saw alien objects on the moon, including a flying saucer sitting along the edge of a crater, within their direct line of sight. Is this true? The public still doesn't really know. NASA has neither confirmed nor denied such claims. Later, during the Apollo 15 mission, recording equipment on Earth captured a sound similar to a long whistle. As the pitch of the sound changed, a 20-syllable phrase emerged and repeated several times. According to a report by the Huffington Post on February 20, 2016, some secret files were revealed, linking to a strange encounter experienced by the astronauts aboard Apollo 10 during their return to Earth. According to classified, still unreleased NASA files, mysterious sounds were heard in space, seemingly coming from another world. The astronauts continuously affirmed in the recorded dialogue that the sound was unlike anything they had ever heard before. They described it as music from outer space, not resembling any whistle or artificial noise, but rather a strange, inexplicable kind of sound. NASA did not issue any official comments on this. Before preparing for the lunar missions, NASA launched 5 small spacecraft to photograph the entire surface of the moon, including its far side. All of this data was considered top secret. The photos had to be sent to the United States National Security Agency, NSA, before being returned to NASA. In 1965, within the NSA, there was a secret research unit where former U.S. Air Force Sergeant Carl R. Wolf worked in a laboratory specializing in the repair and maintenance of precision optical equipment. One day, his superior asked him to assist in resolving a technical issue related to the lunar orbit mission. When Wolf arrived at NSA headquarters, he was shocked to see many foreign civilians present inside a hangar-style facility. With the help of an interpreter, a U.S. Air Force lieutenant led him into a dark room and said, "By the way, I want to tell you that we've discovered a base on the far side of the moon." When Wolf appeared confused, the officer showed him a composite photo made from several orbital images. Once processed, the image revealed geometric structures including spherical buildings, some very tall, resembling radar antennas, but with an extremely large and complex construction. Later, Wolf publicly disclosed this information, claiming it was evidence of extraterrestrial structures on the moon. However, many people were skeptical of his statements, and the US government has never confirmed them. Why haven't we returned to the moon? A man named Bob Dean may have an answer to that question. He was a retired U.S. Army Command Sergeant Major who served for 28 years. He gave several public presentations, not only about the Apollo missions but also addressing many other unanswered questions from the past. At the Exaptic Summit in Barcelona on July 25, 2009, Dean revealed a remarkable photograph and disclosed events that astronauts reportedly experienced, events that contradict any official NASA statement. That he presented a series of images showing astronauts being surrounded by mysterious spacecraft, some measuring hundreds of meters in length. In his speech, he also recounted an event that took place on February 2, 1961, when a fleet of unidentified flying objects, UFOs, suddenly appeared. The event occurred in the morning. These objects were round, metallic, and flew in a clear formation, apparently controlled by intelligent beings. He continued. They flew from the Warsaw area of the Soviet Union to the United States at extremely high speed. They turned north over the English Channel toward the southern coast of England, and then disappeared from NATO radar as they entered the Norwegian Sea. The Soviet Union raised the alarm. NATO forces also went on high alert. Everyone on their side had their fingers poised over the red buttons, and World War III was just minutes away. According to Mr. Dean, within 20 minutes, it was all over. The objects quietly flew north and vanished from radar screens. Immediately after this event, an in-depth investigation was launched. Experts concluded that humanity has been studied and observed by extraterrestrials for centuries or even millennia. Since 1964, experts say there have been approximately 4 different alien species visiting to closely monitor what we do and what our intentions are. Experts also state that these extraterrestrials pose no military threat. Their technology far exceeds ours, and if they wanted to invade, we couldn't stop them, and they could have done so long ago. The 1961 case from Mr. Dean serves as a solid foundation for his later claims about a secret alien base on the moon. This location is ideal for observing Earth from a distance, and no direct alien visits to Earth have been confirmed yet. Here are some images suggesting the moon is busier than we think. An astronaut from Apollo 12 captured a mysterious object orbiting the moon. This photo was taken by Neil Armstrong after the astronaut looked out the window and saw a strange cigar-shaped object flying past the spacecraft window. These sightings included a disc-shaped object hundreds of meters in diameter, appearing suddenly as the astronauts traversed the lunar surface. The next 2 images were taken by Apollo astronauts as they passed over the area believed to be the crater Landsberg. Mr. Dean stated that lunar experts paid special attention to the Landsberg crater. They were specifically assigned to photograph the area because it contained many anomalies. There were structures, massive bases, inside the crater. While the astronauts were observing the crater, an artificial object flew out from it appeared quite large as it flew past our Apollo probe. Dean continued to present evidence from the Apollo 13 mission. He said that several strange objects appeared outside the spacecraft's window, and the astronauts used a Hasselblad camera to capture them. They witnessed 3 different objects drifting through outer space. Another image of Apollo 13's encounter with a UFO was recorded and provided by someone with clairvoyant vision. It wasn't until the appearance of another individual that Wolf's claims were finally confirmed to be highly credible. That person was Ingo Swann, who had participated in the United States' secret Stargate project in the 1980s. Such psychic practices were popular in China, especially among Qigong practitioners, though later repressed by the Chinese Communist Party during the Cultural Revolution. In contrast, the U.S. security agencies highly valued these abilities. After the U.S. ceased lunar landing missions in 1972, they still continued moon research via a program called remote viewing experiments. The CIA recruited individuals with psychic talents. Among them, Ingo Swann possessed clairvoyant abilities, reportedly able to see across thousands of miles, often called a third eye or inner vision. In February 1975, a supposed U.S. government official from Washington approached Swann, inviting him to a secret mission. 1 month later, Swann received a summons to the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History in Washington. Upon arrival, a man beckoned Swann into a car. After 10 minutes, they reached a secret location. Swann waited until a helicopter arrived, then requested to be blindfolded before boarding. Blindfolded, he sensed descending by elevator into an underground base. When the blindfold was removed, he found himself in a room that a man introduced himself as Professor Axel Rhodes, then explained the entire mission to Swann. The man clarified that Professor Axel was a codename, not his real name. Swann was intrigued. Professor Axelrod asked him to use his remote viewing ability to observe the moon. Swann entered a meditative, almost hypnotic state and described. He saw the far side of the moon, seemingly dotted with buildings and glass dome structures. His awareness was drawn inside a tower. Swann began to sweat coldly, prompting the professor to awaken him and ask urgently, "What did you see?" Awoken suddenly, Swann was momentarily out of it before coming fully to his senses. He didn't answer Axel immediately. Instead, he asked, "Are there human colonies on the moon?" Professor Axelrod appeared surprised but remained silent. Swann repeated the question, and this time Axel responded, "What if there aren't?" Swann reported seeing humanoid figures, beings that seemed to recognize they were being watched. They even attempted to locate him, a moment that frightened Swann. However, These beings may not have been human. This was not Swan's first psychic space mission. That on April 27, 1973, Swan was invited by the CIA to participate in a remote viewing experiment. By then, the Apollo lunar landing program had concluded. To continue lunar exploration, the CIA assembled a top research team specializing in psychic phenomena for study and development. The project was led by Dr. Russell Targ and engineer Harold Basov. Ingo Swan was their first test subject. After hundreds of trials, they confirmed that Swan could draw maps using only geographical coordinates of a target location. At 6 p.m. that day, Swan took just 3 minutes to see Jupiter. He also described a glowing halo around the planet. Later, image data confirmed that Jupiter indeed possesses a halo. These images were captured and transmitted by the Pioneer 10 spacecraft in November 1973. The remote viewing experiment had taken place on April 27, 1973. This proved that, prior to that moment, leading scientists and astronomers worldwide were unaware of Jupiter's halo, and Swan was the first to detect its rings. That Swan's ability to perceive Jupiter matched exactly with the data transmitted to Earth by the Pioneer 10 spacecraft. Everyone knows Jupiter is approximately 640 million kilometers away, so his remote viewing ability is undeniable. Subsequently, Swan was invited multiple times to observe even more distant planets. Therefore, it can be confirmed that the scenes he saw of the far side of the moon in 1975 have a solid basis. And the images he glimpsed of the far side in 1965 were indeed real. In fact, in July 1969, American astronaut Neil Armstrong, while orbiting the moon and in communications with mission control known as Houston, suddenly exclaimed, "Oh, my God! These things are enormous. Truly unbelievable. I want to tell you all, there are other spacecraft here. They are lined up on the other side of the crater. And they are on the moon. They're staring at us." Shortly thereafter, radio communication was abruptly cut off. What Armstrong saw is entirely consistent with what Swan perceived through remote viewing and with the lunar probe photographs Armstrong had previously seen. These pieces of evidence are often cited as the reason humanity abandoned further crewed moon landing plans. It was only after discovering the possible presence of beings or life on the moon that astronauts, and humankind at large, abandoned the intent to explore and expand projects there. Indeed, space remains filled with mysteries that humanity has not yet explored, or even been allowed to approach. Some individuals claim to have witnessed strange phenomena and supernatural events firsthand. Yet governments around the world continue to conceal them. Is it out of fear of causing public panic? Or is it to preserve a materialist worldview and dismiss anything beyond mainstream scientific understanding? If you have any thoughts or reflections on this topic, please leave a comment below so we can discuss further. Thank you all for watching. And now, goodbye and see you in the next videos.